In 2002, Spider-Man didn't just create a superhero, it etched its cast into the memory of an entire generation. But once the lights faded, the story turned far darker. From explosive engagement rumors to a heartbreaking homeless story that shocked the world. These transformations will leave you speechless. Tobey Maguire as Peter Parker and Spider-Man. Peter Parker, the central character of Spider-Man, 2002, was played by Tobey Maguire. At 27 years old, he portrayed a young man forced to live two lives, one fragile and invisible, the other violent and overwhelming. The role demanded restraint, vulnerability, and emotional isolation rather than spectacle. It was a character built on pressure rather than power. Born June 27, 1975, in Santa Monica, California, Tobias Vincent Maguire grew up inside instability shaped directly by his parents. His mother, Wendy Brown, worked multiple low-paying jobs to survive, while his father, Vincent Maguire, drifted in and out of his life and was later convicted of bank robbery. Their divorce when Tobey was 3 forced him to move constantly between relatives, often without a stable home. Poverty, shame, and emotional neglect defined his childhood long before acting offered an escape. Marriage arrived during the height of his fame. In 2007, Maguire married jewelry designer Jennifer Meyer, daughter of studio executive Ronald Meyer, and together they had 2 children, Ruby and Otis. Behind the appearance of stability, pressure mounted. Long filming schedules, public scrutiny, and unresolved emotional distance fractured the relationship. After years of separation, the marriage ended in divorce in 2020, leaving Maguire publicly composed but privately withdrawn during that period. Health struggles followed success rather than preceded it. After the Spider-Man trilogy ended, Maguire experienced depression and anxiety linked to burnout and identity loss. He stepped away from acting for extended periods, choosing smaller projects and producing roles instead. During this time, films like Brothers, which earned him a Golden Globe nomination, and later Pawn Sacrifice, reflected his internal tension rather than ambition. Today, Tobey Maguire is 51 years old. He works selectively as an actor and producer, maintaining distance from constant public exposure. His estimated net worth of around $75 million comes largely from the Spider-Man films and long-term production deals. Kirsten Dunst as Mary Jane Watson. Mary Jane Watson, the primary female role in Spider-Man, 2002, was played by Kirsten Dunst. At 20 years old, she portrayed a young woman struggling between ambition, insecurity, and emotional dependence. The role required restraint rather than glamour, placing her inside unresolved longing and frustration. It became the defining image of her early adulthood. Born April 30, 1982, in Point Pleasant, New Jersey, Kirsten Caroline Dunst was raised under intense parental pressure. Her father, Klaus Dunst, worked as a medical services executive, while her mother, Inez Ruprecht, a former flight attendant, became her full-time manager after her parents separated. Kirsten began modeling at 3 and acting at 7, leaving school and childhood behind. The absence of normal friendships and constant adult responsibility created deep emotional fatigue early in her life. Her personal relationships reflected that instability. Dunst experienced several long-term relationships that ended under pressure, including with actor Jake Gyllenhaal and later Garrett Hedlund. Stability only came years later after meeting actor Jesse Plemons on Fargo. They married in 2022 after building a family together, a turning point that followed years of emotional uncertainty and solitude. Mental health struggles marked her career trajectory. In 2008, Dunst entered treatment for severe depression caused by overwork and emotional exhaustion. Recovery reshaped her artistic choices, leading to performances rooted in psychological depth rather than visibility. Melancholia earned her Best Actress at Cannes, and The Power of the Dog later brought an Academy Award nomination, redefining her career during that period. Now, Kirsten Dunst is 44 years old, She continues acting in carefully selected projects while prioritizing family life. Her estimated net worth of around $25 million stems from the Spider-Man trilogy, independent cinema, and award-winning dramatic roles. Her story is no longer about endurance. It is about survival after being pushed too far, too soon. James Franco as Harry Osborn. Harry Osborn, the troubled heir of Norman Osborn in Spider-Man, 2002, was played by James Franco. At 24 years old, he portrayed a young man torn between loyalty, jealousy, and a growing hunger for approval that slowly curdled into rage. The role placed him beside greatness, while quietly isolating him inside the story. Born April 19, 1978, in Palo Alto, California, James Edward Franco grew up in a household fractured early by tension. His mother, Betsy Lou Verne, a writer and occasional actress, pushed academic discipline, while his father, Douglas Eugene Franco, ran a Silicon Valley business and demanded control. After his parents divorced, instability followed, and as a teenager, Franco spiraled into drug use, theft, and repeated arrests. Facing juvenile detention, he was forced into early rehabilitation, carrying shame and identity confusion long before adulthood. James Franco never married, and his personal relationships reflected prolonged instability. He maintained long-term relationships with Marla Sokoloff and later Anna O'Reilly, both of which ended under the strain of his chaotic lifestyle and obsessive career pursuits. As fame increased, emotional intimacy eroded, leaving isolation rather than partnership. By the time his peers were settling down, Franco was increasingly alone, surrounded by attention but lacking grounding. Health and psychological struggles followed him into his professional peak. Franco later admitted to battling addiction and compulsive behavior well into adulthood, entering recovery programs multiple times. During this period, his work grew darker and more extreme, culminating in physically punishing performances such as 127 Hours, which earned him an Academy Award nomination, and The Disaster Artist, which won him a Golden Globe. His intensity became both his strength and his warning sign. Today, James Franco is 48 years old. He continues working intermittently as an actor, director, and visual artist after years of professional fallout following sexual misconduct allegations and a $2.2 million legal settlement. His estimated net worth is around $30 million, significantly reduced from his peak years. J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson. J. Jonah Jameson, the explosive editor-in-chief of the Daily Bugle in Spider-Man, 2002, was played by J.K. Simmons. At 47 years old, he delivered a performance driven by voice, rhythm, and relentless pressure rather than physical action. The role turned a supporting character into an unforgettable force. Born January 9, 1955, in Grosse Pointe, Michigan, Jonathan Kimball Simmons was raised in a demanding but structured household. His mother, Patricia Kimball, worked as an administrator, while his father, Donald William Simmons, was a music teacher who later became a university director. Frequent family relocations for his father's career placed Simmons under constant academic and musical pressure. Simmons married filmmaker Michelle Schumacher in 1996, and their marriage endured despite long separations caused by work. Together, they raised 2 children while navigating financial insecurity during Simmons's early years as a character actor. Stability came slowly, built on persistence rather than luck. There are no public records of serious illness, but professional hardship defined his middle years. For decades, Simmons accepted minor roles and voice work to survive, often struggling financially before recognition arrived. His breakthrough came late, and when it did, it was brutal. His performance in Whiplash earned him an Academy Award and permanently redefined his status. Films like Juno and later Being the Ricardos confirmed that success had been delayed, not denied. Now, J.K. Simmons is 71 years old. He remains highly active across film, television, and voice acting, continuing to reprise iconic roles while mentoring younger performers. His estimated net worth is around $20 million, built steadily rather than explosively. Rosemary Harris as May Parker. May Parker, the quiet moral anchor of Spider-Man, 2002, was played by Rosemary Harris. At 75 years old, she embodied Peter Parker's aunt as a woman shaped by loss, restraint, and emotional endurance rather than heroism. Her performance carried weight through silence instead of spectacle. It was a presence built on lived sorrow, not narrative convenience. Born September 19, 1927, in Ashby-de-la-Zouch, England, Rosemary Ann Harris grew up in displacement and emotional uncertainty. Her father, Stafford Berkeley Harris, served in the Royal Air Force, forcing the family to relocate repeatedly, including long periods in India. Her mother, Enid Maud Frances Campion, struggled to provide emotional stability amid constant movement. Isolation followed her from childhood into adolescence, teaching her self-reliance long before adulthood arrived. Harris's personal life carried both devotion and fracture. She first married actor-director Ellis Rabb in 1959, a partnership rooted in theater but strained by ambition and conflicting visions, ending in divorce in 1967. Soon after, she married writer John Eel, with whom she built a quieter life and raised their daughter, actress Jennifer Eel. When John Eel died in 2018, the loss marked the end of a lifelong companionship, leaving Harris publicly composed but privately diminished. In 2026, Rosemary Harris is 99 years old. She lives in near retirement, her public appearances rare and deliberate. Her estimated net worth is around $5 million, accumulated over a lifetime of stage and screen work rather than commercial dominance. Elizabeth Banks as Betty Brant. Betty Brant, the composed assistant at the Daily Bugle in Spider-Man, 2002, was played by Elizabeth Banks. At 28 years old, she portrayed a young professional navigating ambition and restraint inside a male-dominated newsroom. The role required control rather than exposure. It was an early test of presence over prominence. Born February 10, 1974, in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, Elizabeth Irene Mitchell was raised in a working-class household defined by discipline and expectation. Her father, Mark P. Mitchell, a Vietnam War veteran, worked long hours as a factory employee while her mother, Ann Wallace Mitchell, held a bank job to keep the family afloat. Competitive sports dominated Elizabeth's youth, resulting in physical injuries and relentless pressure to perform. Marriage brought both stability and pain. In 2003, she married producer Max Handelman, her college partner and creative collaborator. Their relationship endured professional turbulence, but the deeper wound came from infertility, forcing them to confront grief privately. However, transitioning from actress to director placed her under intense scrutiny, particularly during the production of Pitch Perfect 2, where creative pressure and financial risk collided. Success eventually followed, reinforced by her work in the Hunger Games franchise and her directing achievements, but not without emotional cost. Today, Elizabeth Banks is 52 years old. She remains active as an actress, director, producer, and television host while running her company, Brownstone Productions. Her estimated net worth stands at around $50 million, built through decades of persistence rather than instant ascent. Bill Nunn as Joseph Robbie Robertson. Joseph Robbie Robertson, the steady editor inside the Daily Bugle in Spider-Man, 2002, was played by Bill Nunn. At 49 years old, he stepped into the newsroom as the one man who didn't bark for power, but held the room together with quiet authority. His face looked calm, yet it carried the weight of a life that already knew what pressure does to a person. That calmness was earned, and it came from somewhere painful. Born October 20, 1953 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, William Goldwyn Nunn III grew up in the Hill District where poverty and racial tension were constant forces. His mother, Frances Nunn, worked to keep the household afloat, while his father, William G. Nunn Jr., a journalist and editor, carried the burden of proving excellence in a world that rarely rewarded black voices fairly. From an early age, Bill absorbed discipline, expectation, and fear all at once. Marriage offered him grounding in a life that rarely felt secure. He married Donna Watts, and together they raised their daughter Sydney, building stability while his career remained uncertain. As illness entered his later years, that family became his final line of defense against collapse. The emotional toll of watching strength give way to fragility reshaped their private life in silence. Professionally, Bill Nunn lived inside contradiction. After becoming unforgettable as Radio Raheem in Do the Right Thing, 1989, Hollywood still kept him circling supporting roles, never granting the financial safety his talent deserved. He worked steadily. Sister Act, 1992, proved he could move between intensity and warmth, but money stress and typecasting followed him into middle age. When Spider-Man arrived, audiences finally saw him as moral authority, even though the industry had tested that authority for decades. Finally, he passed away at 62 years old on September 24, 2016, after a battle with leukemia at his home in Pittsburgh. His death was quiet, intimate, and devastating in its simplicity. No spectacle, just absence. His estimated net worth was around $2 million, a modest sum compared to the cultural weight he carried. Ted Raimi, as Hoffman, the Daily Bugle staffer in Spider-Man 2002, was played by Ted Raimi. At 37 years old, he brought nervous humor and sharp timing into a workplace defined by pressure and hierarchy. His character functioned as release, tension, and rhythm all at once. Behind that timing was a man still fighting to define himself beyond his surname. Born December 14, 1965 in Detroit, Michigan, Theodore R. Raimi was raised in a household shaped by work ethic and immigrant discipline. His mother, Celia Abrams, ran a lingerie shop, while his father, Leonard Raimi, owned a furniture business, teaching practicality over comfort. Growing up as the younger brother of Sam Raimi, Ted lived under constant comparison long before the cameras arrived. Opportunity followed his name, but so did doubt about whether he truly belonged. Ted Raimi's career evolved through persistence rather than breakthrough. He became a familiar presence across genre cinema, television, and cult franchises, gradually proving his range beyond association. Roles in Xena, Warrior Princess as Joxer the Mighty, Sequest, DS5, and the Evil Dead universe showed adaptability and endurance rather than stardom. Today, Ted Raimi is 61 years old. He continues working as an actor, writer, and genre regular, maintaining relevance through consistency rather than reinvention. His estimated net worth is around $1 million, reflecting a career built on longevity instead of headline paydays. Willem Dafoe as Norman Osborn/Green Goblin. Norman Osborn, the fractured industrialist who becomes the Green Goblin in Spider-Man 2002, was played by Willem Dafoe at 47 years old. His performance carried a disturbing precision. Intellect without mercy, power without balance. Dafoe did not play a villain. He exposed one already alive inside the man. Born July 22, 1955 in Appleton, Wisconsin, Willem Dafoe grew up as the youngest among 8 siblings, in a household where both parents worked long hours in medicine. Emotional absence shaped his early years more than discipline. Raised largely by his sisters, he learned independence early, but also rebellion. Formal education never held him. He left university after 18 months, choosing instability over obedience and theater over structure. That choice led him to experimental stage work in New York, where intensity replaced comfort. His breakthrough came with Platoon, 1986, earning an Academy Award nomination and briefly positioning him as a moral center on screen. Yet the industry quickly reshaped him into something else. His sharp features, restless energy, and confrontational presence pushed him repeatedly toward antagonists. Over time, that repetition became pressure, the demand to constantly embody darkness without being consumed by it. His private life mirrored complexity rather than collapse. A 27-year partnership with Elizabeth Lecomte produced a son, Jack, and ended without marriage or spectacle. In 2005, he married Giada Colagrande, forming a quieter, more grounded creative partnership. By the time The Lighthouse 2019 earned him another Oscar nomination, Dafoe had fully embraced transformation as survival rather than escape. In 2026, Willem Dafoe is 71 years old. He continues working relentlessly across art house and mainstream cinema, refusing stillness. His estimated net worth is around $40 million, a figure that reflects longevity, not safety. Cliff Robertson as Ben Parker. Ben Parker, the moral anchor of Spider-Man, 2002, was played by Cliff Robertson at 79 years old. His presence carried gravity not through volume, but through restraint. When he spoke, it felt final. Not because the lines were iconic, but because the man delivering them had already survived what most careers do not. Born September 9, 1923, in Los Angeles, California, Robertson's childhood was marked by fracture. His parents divorced early. His mother died when he was young, leaving him to be raised by his grandmother under persistent financial strain. Stability never arrived. Only responsibility. That early loss shaped a man drawn to discipline, aviation, and self-reliance long before acting became a career. Success came with Charlie, 1968, earning him an Academy Award for Best Actor. Then came the punishment. After exposing embezzlement at Columbia Pictures, Robertson was quietly blacklisted, losing studio support for years. Roles vanished. Momentum collapsed. The industry he confronted responded not with justice, but erasure. That period defined him more than his Oscar ever did. His personal life absorbed similar damage. 2 marriages, first to Cynthia Stone, then to Dina Merrill, ended in divorce, each leaving emotional residue rather than resolution. Despite professional recovery through television and character roles, the shadow of exclusion followed him until late life. When Spider-Man finally arrived, it was not a comeback. It was recognition delayed by decades. Sadly, Cliff Robertson died on September 10, 2011, one day after his 88th birthday, from natural causes in New York. His remains were cremated and laid to rest privately. His estimated net worth was around $5 million. Bruce Campbell as ring announcer. Ring announcer, the loud, mocking voice that punctures Peter Parker's dignity in Spider-Man 2002, was played by Bruce Campbell. At 44 years old, he appeared only briefly, yet his timing carried years of survival behind it. The role did not introduce him to audiences. It reminded them he had never left. Even in seconds, he performed like a man who understood humiliation from the inside. Born June 22, 1958, in Royal Oak, Michigan, Bruce Lorne Campbell grew up under the pressure of movement and expectation. His father, Charles Newton Campbell, worked in advertising and education, a career that forced frequent relocations and demanded constant reinvention. His mother, Joanne Louise Campbell, held the family together while creativity was treated as both promise and risk. That instability shaped a boy who learned early that attention was earned, not given. Marriage did not soften that instability at first. His early marriage to Kirsten Dunst ended in divorce in 1989, during years when money was uncertain and his work was dismissed as cult. In 1991, he married Ida Guerin, a relationship that brought structure rather than escape. By then, he had learned that personal endurance mattered more than approval. Professionally, The Evil Dead, 1981, made him iconic but not safe. Cult fame brought loyalty, not security, and for years he lived between conventions and low-budget sets. Only later did long-form television, including Ash vs. Evil Dead, allow him to reclaim his legacy on his own terms, without dilution or apology. Today, Bruce Campbell is 68 years old. He remains active as a producer, author, and genre figurehead, respected more now than he ever was at his commercial peak. His estimated net worth is around $10 million US, built slowly, unevenly, and honestly. His career never followed the industry. It survived it. Joe Manganiello as Flash Thompson. Flash Thompson, the physical embodiment of teenage cruelty in Spider-Man 2002, was played by Joe Manganiello. At 26 years old, he stepped into the role with a body shaped by pain rather than confidence. The aggression on screen masked a history of vulnerability few recognized. It was his first job, but not his first fight. Born December 28, 1976 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Joseph Michael Manganiello was raised by Susan Manganiello and Charles Manganiello in a home that valued discipline and performance. His youth was marked by serious kidney disease during his teenage years, forcing hospitalizations, physical limits, and isolation. Athletic success came later, but the memory of weakness never left him. Marriage became both refuge and fracture. His relationship with Sofia Vergara, highly public and intensely scrutinized, ended in divorce in 2024 after 7 years. The separation exposed irreconcilable differences over family and future, turning private grief into public consumption. The emotional cost followed him long after the statements ended. Career momentum arrived with True Blood, where physicality finally aligned with control, and later with Magic Mike, 2012, which reshaped his image permanently. Yet success did not erase loss. It only made it visible. Even as opportunities expanded into directing and producing, personal certainty remained fragile. In 2026, Joe Manganiello is 50 years old. He continues working across film, fantasy media, and production while rebuilding life on quieter terms. His estimated net worth is around $40 million US, reflecting scale, not peace. The boy once sick, once mocked, now stands strong. But the scars were never imaginary. Time has changed faces, bodies, and careers. But it hasn't erased the cost of becoming part of Spider-Man, 2002. Behind the nostalgia are lives shaped by pressure, loss, and survival long after the cameras stopped rolling. So when you look back at the cast then and now, the real question is this: what did fame give them? And what did it quietly take away? Subscribe, like, and share if you want to keep uncovering the stories behind the masks.